I guess when I think of a vice, I think of a kind of character trait, maybe to some extent predictable pattern of behavior and attitudes, whose positive counterpart is a virtue. So if a virtue is a character trait or set of dispositions that tend to contribute to a person's flourishing, then a vice would be a character trait or set of dispositions that tends to contribute to their lack of flourishing. But just because something has some negative well-being impacts doesn't mean that it isn't choice-worthy overall. A life of total abstinence from any of those things, while it might be a longer life, wouldn't be a preferable life because I wouldn't, say, enjoy the kinds of activities that constitute that longer life.
I freaking love nicotine. There's no better way to put it. I've been smoking for a while off and on, but personally I love being on more than I love being off. At the end of the day, quitting sucks, but I'm getting really good at it. Sometimes I think about all that I've lost from this bad habit. I do worry about my health, and I definitely could have saved a lot of money, but then I remember how cool I look when I do it, and I go and buy another pack. It feels like one of life's simpler pleasures. At the end of a hard day, I could have a cry, or I could smoke. Maybe I'll never get over it. Maybe I'll quit again tomorrow. Maybe it's the cycle that's addictive. Growing up, I was a devout Catholic and dreamed of becoming a priest. So when I stumbled across my first gay porn video at 11 years old, it was like my iPad mini had opened the gates to hell. After I threw all that pious church shit out the window in high school, shame began to manifest in other ways. It seemed like everyone was getting their first hand job, blow job, foot job, and whatever else straight people do in bed. I downloaded Grindr and got to work. Finally, I was desirable. Granted, these men weren't anything to swoon over, but it didn't matter. I had felt so much shame for so long, I wasn't going to let it ruin me now. But I was obsessive and I was searching for the right person to tell me I was attractive. I think that once most gay men become comfortable with sex, then we bring in our trauma and shame into the bedroom as a way to cope with it. So then what's the appeal of anonymous sex? Asking a man that is like asking a mouse why it wants a cookie. What's not to like about a fucking cookie? I got into fan fiction when I was 8. I was completely obsessed with Big Hero 6 and heard of Fall Out Boy from their soundtrack. It wasn't long before I discovered what fan fiction was. I think the consensus around fan fiction is pretty fair and somewhat consistent. The main thing I hear is that most people see it as cringy, creepy, and alarming, especially when a lot of fandoms have bad reps for being overboard when it comes to sexual content. I have to say, even though I do read fanfic, I definitely agree with this sentiment. Sometimes it can be way too much, but I just love living in my obsessions. When I love something, someone, or a world, I fall hard. I love living in these fantasies where I can be a character in this world and get away from my life for a little while. I've been an avid thrifter since high school and have spent years curating my closet with unique secondhand items. Not only do I love the sustainability of it, but the high I get from finding an item that I love is unmatched. But like whenever I see someone who has a really good item in their hand, or even someone who is a similar age to me, I can't help but start going through the racks faster in attempts to try to beat them to any potential good finds. I'm a big worrier. I can be picky and somewhat rigid about the various facets of my life, from work to hobbies to social life. Because of this, I maintain a few dozen lists in my notes app and my Google Sheets. They make me feel organized and help me stress less about keeping track of everything I have to think about. I have a document for recipes and meal ideas, one for expenses, one for places I like to go hiking. I have a catalog of books I want to read, a list of favorite photographers, a record of movies I've watched and want to watch. While I do work in media, I don't consult these documents for professional purposes. I really just maintain them for comfort. Whenever I'm stressed, I open up my notes app and write a list of whatever I'm fixated on. I think modern American culture really pushes self-analysis, but I don't exactly analyze. I just document to keep track, because if I don't write it down, how will I know it happened?
Any pattern of behavior can be a virtue or a vice, understood in that sense. Even something as virtuous as shopping at thrift stores can contribute to your leading a worse life. And anything as seemingly vicious as cruising for casual sex can contribute to your well-being and your flourishing overall. So I think from a kind of philosophical or a normative perspective, it's not so much about how societies label or classify these kinds of behaviors, but about figuring out what does actually help your life go better than it would otherwise.